Today's story, Omar ibn Al-Khattab. I will begin this episode with a question, but first, I want to send my warm greetings to my number one fan, Abdul Rahman. Thank you for always watching, Abdul Rahman. It is people like you who keep me going. So yeah, why is the personality of Omar ibn Al-Khattab still so interesting even to this very day? Though he died 1,400 years ago, why isn't Abu Bakr as-Siddiq that interesting? Abu Bakr is more loved by Allah than Omar ibn Al-Khattab. But still, Omar ibn Al-Khattab has gotten more attention. Books and folders about him were written. They even made a movie about him. The reasons are numerous. The first reason is Allah granted this feature to Omar ibn Al-Khattab. Anyone who gets to know about Omar ibn Al-Khattab's personality, they immediately get curious and interested. The second reason is, well, it is a normal reason, is to have a role model. Humans, since their childhood, by nature, they like to have role models. For instance, when we were kids, we would pick role models from the cartoons that we used to watch, and we tend to act like them. Alright, so we get it that we like to have role models. But again, why Omar ibn Al-Khattab is still so special? Simply, it is because he represents the opposite aspect of our lives, the opposite of my personality and your personality, the opposite of our current lifestyle. Let me give you some examples. Omar ibn Al-Khattab is known for being an ascetic person, a person who doesn't care about life. I mean, can we embrace his lifestyle and live like him? Can we live without a bank account? Or without social media accounts? Or mobile phones? I don't really think so. But if Omar ibn Al-Khattab was living with us here and at this time, he would have given up on all what we cannot live without. Omar ibn Al-Khattab was known for justice. Can you, as a manager, implement justice between only 10 of your employees, but by 120% and not 100? Well, for Omar, he certainly could. Omar was known for saying the truth even about himself. Let me ask all of you guys a question. Can you say the truth even if it was about you? Even if you guys did no good? Can you go to your boss and tell them about all the things you've done in your job with the full, complete truth? You see, you guys, this is why Omar is different from all of us. He simply doesn't care about his life. He doesn't care if his hair is so nice and shiny and long, or he's wearing that Gucci brand, or how would people see him, or what will they say about him. There is a huge difference between a man who does not desire life and a man who desires to live. Omar ibn Khattab had all the traits of a faithful man. Those traits were prominent in him. He was a fair man, but when it comes to righteousness, he was decisive, yet merciful with the believers. Let me explain this to you practically. Let me tell you some traits and some of the companions of Sahaba, and I'll leave it up to you guys to decide which companion would you like to be like. Let's start with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He was known for giving charity generously, and he was known for being a firm believer. He was distinguished from the rest of the companions with something that settled in his heart, which is faith. For Uthman ibn Affan, he married two of the Prophet's daughters and was named Dhun Nurayn, meaning the man with two lights. The two lights are the two daughters of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And now, for Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was known for bravery and fearlessness. He fought a furious infidel man from Quraysh when he was only 17 years old, and he literally split him into two with his sword. As for Abu Huraira, he accompanied the Prophet for 4 years barely, yet he narrated 5,374 hadith on behalf of the Prophet. A companion called Dihya al-Kalbi, Gabriel, peace be upon him, whenever he descended with revelation to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he used to come down with the form of Dihya al-Kalbi, because he was an extremely good-looking man. And let's not forget Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, who was nicknamed by the Prophet the Lion of Allah and the Lion of his Prophet, Asadullahi wa Rasuluh, and Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was also nicknamed by the Prophet Sayfullah al-Maslul, the drawn sword of Allah. All of these people were just examples, but let me now ask you a question. Which one of these companions would you rather be like? Which trait you exactly want to have? And who is the companion that you would rather be? Or would you want to be like Omar ibn Al-Khattab? May Allah be pleased with him. The undeniable fact is that history ranks Omar ibn Al-Khattab as the third most influential character ever, right after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. I'm really sorry for this prolonged introduction. But now, let's get into our story. Omar ibn Al-Khattab had an inner dispute within him between the right and wrong. He was tremendously impressed by how the Muslims were persistent on being on the right side despite the unbearable pain. He was impressed by the amount of faith they had in their hearts. He had a dispute between the impressive faithful Muslims and his infidel identity because he was merciless with the Muslims, yet he felt sad for them and treated them mercifully sometimes. For instance, he met a woman that was preparing to migrate secretly to Abyssinia with her husband. He asked her, "Are you making departure?" And she replied saying, "Yes, we had enough of your merciless acts." He literally let her go and said, "May Allah be with you." Despite all the inner dispute and indecisiveness in Omar ibn Al-Khattab, he decided to kill the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He wanted to put an end to all the dispute that really baffled him, because he thought that by putting an end to Muhammad's life, he would be relieved for good. So he grabbed his sword and headed towards the Prophet, peace be upon him. And on his way, he met Naim ibn Abdullah al-Nahham, who was secretly a Muslim too. Naim saw Omar ibn Al-Khattab's face, and he knew that Omar was not up to good. So he asked him, "Where are you going, Omar?" Omar ibn Al-Khattab replied to Naim angrily and said, "I am going to kill Muhammad." Naim then replied, "Do you really think that the tribe of Abdul Manaf would let you live after killing Muhammad? They would wipe you out of existence. And then, you should have started with your own family. They are the Muslims who you should start with. Go ahead and kill them first, then do whatever you want." Wait a minute, hold your horses. Omar ibn Al-Khattab was puzzled. His family? What does he mean, his family? His family became Muslims? Omar was really confused. He shouted, asking, "Who of my family members embraced Islam?" Naim replied saying, "Your sister Fatima, she became a Muslim, and her husband Sa'id as well became a Muslim. أختك فاطمة ابنة الخطاب وختانك ابن عمك سعيد." Omar couldn't believe what he was hearing. He immediately changed his direction and headed running to his most beloved people, his sister Fatima and her husband Sa'id, who happens to be his cousin. As he got to the house, his sister Fatima bint al-Khattab was sitting in the house with her husband and another companion called Khabbab ibn al-Arat, who was teaching them the Holy Quran. They were all sitting together as they were reciting Surah Taha. Omar ibn Al-Khattab was standing behind the door and he heard their recitation. And at that moment, he realized that what Naim told him was the truth. His sister really did embrace Islam. He couldn't hold himself and he knocked so hard that he almost broke the door. Khabbab ibn al-Arat, who was teaching them the Holy Quran, jumped from his place and hid because he knew that Omar ibn Al-Khattab was behind that door. Fatima and her husband quickly hid the scroll in which Surah Taha was written, and they were really scared, panicking. Fatima went up to the door for Omar ibn Al-Khattab and she opened it. And as soon as Omar entered the house, he said, "What is this slow mumbling that I just heard?" They denied, saying, "You haven't heard anything." But Omar insisted. He said, "I heard that you embraced Islam and followed the new religion that Muhammad brought." Fatima's husband Sa'id told Omar, "أرأيت يا عمر إذا كان الحق في غير دينك?" And what if the truth is in a different religion than yours? Omar couldn't hold himself. He grabbed Sa'id from his collar and dropped him down the ground, and he pushed on his belly with his knee and started beating him so hard Fatima panicked and tried to defend her husband, but Omar pushed her away, so strong that she fell on her head and started bleeding. Fatima shouted at Omar so loud, saying,
يا عدو الله أتضربني وزوجي على أن نوحد الله؟ ما كنت فاعلا فافعل. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
Here, you guys, we have to stop for a minute. There is a lesson to be learned. Who is standing up tall and speaking here is a woman. She's physically incomparable to Umar ibn Khattab, but what was truly speaking here was the faith she had in her heart. If faith settles in your heart, it will make you the strongest ever, despite how small people see you. And after Omar saw his sister standing up tall and speaking so bravely, he stopped and backed down. At this point, Omar was still an infidel. He and his sister were different. Umar ibn Khattab felt sad about his sister. She's still his sister. Their brother and sister bond made them feel sad about each other, because at the end of the day, they were still brother and sister. He then asked Fatima to hand him the scroll that they were reading from, because he was curious about the religion that Muhammad brought. Fatima refused to give him the scroll, saying, "I'm worried that you might tear it apart." Omar then gave her a promise with his gods that he will not tear the papers apart. Something in Fatima's heart told her to believe him, so she decided to hand him the scroll. Even though he swore by the name of fake gods, he was truly honest, despite being a disbeliever. Fatima believed her brother despite he swore by the name of an unreal god, because she knew he's always honest. He must have indeed been a trustworthy man. She decided to give him the scroll, but before she handed it, she told him, "لا يمسه إلا المطهرون." The Quran is only touched by the purified. So Umar ibn Khattab bathed and purified himself. And then he started reading Surah Taha. And this is where the beauty of Allah's words touched his heart. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Taha. ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى الرحمن على العرش استوى له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى وإن تجهر بالقول فإنه يعلم السر وأخفى الله لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى. At this verse, Umar ibn Khattab stopped reading. He didn't even finish reading the whole scroll. He only read the first verses. He then said, ينبغي على من يقول هذا ألا يعبد معه أحد. He who said these beautiful words should only be worshipped alone. He said, what a beautiful and honorable text. He said this even before he embraced Islam. And at that moment, Khabbab ibn al-Ard, who was hiding, came out and said to Omar, أبشر يا عمر فإني أرجو أن تكون قد سبقت فيك دعوة رسول الله. اللهم أعز الإسلام بأحب هذين الرجلين إليك بأبي الحكم بن هشام أو بعمر بن الخطاب. And therefore, Allah responded to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prayers, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed to Allah that he may honors Islam with one of the two Omars. One is Amr ibn Hisham, also known as Abu Jahl, or Umar ibn Khattab, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Umar ibn Khattab, and indeed, Allah has honored Islam with Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab then took his sword and went to Darul Arqam to finally embrace Islam. When he reached Darul Arqam, he knocked on the door, and one of the companions took a look from the hole in the door, and when they saw Umar ibn Khattab at the door carrying his sword, the companion panicked and said to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions, the man knocking on that door is Umar ibn Khattab, and he's carrying his sword. I mean, of course everyone would be scared if Umar was carrying a sword. It means he's up to no good. There, Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib was one of the companions who were there, the lion of Allah and his prophet. He was a fearless man. For him, fear was never a choice. Hamza was a match for Umar ibn Khattab. He had no problem facing him, so he said, if Umar came to embrace Islam, then he is welcome. But if he came to kill, then I shall kill him with his own sword. The Prophet, peace be upon him, then allowed him in. And as soon as Umar ibn Khattab came in, Hamza stood up and pulled him by his clothes and said, "What brings you here, Umar ibn Khattab? Because I don't think that you would ever believe unless Allah sends a striking disaster upon you." Umar ibn Khattab then looked at the Prophet, peace be upon him, and said, "Ya Rasulallah." Notice here, you guys, he called the Prophet of Allah, which means he already believed. He continued saying, "I came to you to believe in Allah and His Prophet and what Allah has brought down." And with full confidence, Umar ibn Khattab said, "Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." There, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and all of the companions said, "Allahu Akbar." The Prophet, peace be upon him, was so happy that Umar ibn Khattab embraced Islam. He always felt happy for anyone who converts to Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was extremely happy when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq embraced Islam, but his happiness for the conversion of Umar ibn Khattab was even more. It was a unique reaction, because adding Umar ibn Khattab to the side of Muslims is tremendously significant. It is extremely important. Why though? Because it changed the balance of power between the right and wrong. Muslims no longer have to hide their faith. Umar ibn Khattab is a Muslim now. Umar then asked the Prophet a deep question. He told him, "Aren't we on the truth whether we live or die?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, replied saying, "Yes, we are." Then Umar ibn Khattab replied saying, "Then why are we being humiliated due to our religion?" He meant, why do we have to hide our faith since we are following the truth? The Prophet, peace be upon him, then, right after the conversion of Umar ibn Khattab, organized the Muslims into two rows. One row was led by Umar ibn Khattab and the other was led by Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. And the two parties headed straight away towards Al-Kaaba. All the Muslims who kept their faith and prayers in secret for so many years, at that moment, headed to the Kaaba without being scared. Thanks to Umar's conversion to Islam, as-Sahaba were able to pray at Al-Kaaba in public before the eyes of everyone else. The era after the conversion of Umar ibn Khattab was an era of honor and power. You guys, Umar ibn Khattab was a single person, yet he did all of that. In a nutshell, a single person may not be able to change the world, but they can surely make a difference. Till we meet next time.